Hey guys, welcome to a Tuesday live stream, probably the last of the year, the 52nd one. I'm running a little late, so that's why the topic or the list on this just says "Let's talk" because I literally am just kind of running in and just trying to go live. So I have a couple ideas of what I would like to chat about, but a lot of it will also depend upon what you guys want to talk about for the people who decide to hang out with us. So, to do my normal initial question, if you can see and hear me, please give me a 1 in the comments so that I know that I am broadcasting and transmitting and that everything is working and sounding okay. And I hope you guys are doing okay. God, it's hard to believe it's already the 17th of December. Holy hell. Crazy, crazy, crazy. All right, I got a 1, so I know I'm working. So that is great. So, and I got MFA says 1, Tommy, Vince, free indeed. Haben Habashawi. Oh my God. Tara. Okay, awesome. Bears Cat says thumbs up. 2 days shy of getting my TOP served. Ugh. So, I mean, is that on you or is that on your ex? So, where does time go? Yeah, that is for sure. So, just jumping in, I am not a therapist nor an attorney. If you need professional advice or medical help, make sure you consult a licensed professional in your state of area to help you out. I provide information that I glean through my personal experience, and I've developed some tips and techniques that helped me that I hope will help you to get your life back, repair the relationship with your kids, and put some sanity on this chaos that you are dealing with. If that sounds good to you, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, ring the bell notification so that you don't miss a thing in the future. So, on that, if you are new to the program, you can also run on over to the DSD, not that one, the DSD website and sign up for the newsletter. If sometimes a dialogue will pop up. If that doesn't happen, then you can scroll down and sign up there. I do not share that information with anybody, but that will put you on my mailing list. If you want to support what we do here, you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can become a patron or Patreon or patron. I get confused with that, and support the channel that way, or you can make a donation, buy me a coffee, so to speak, and help keep the lights on. And on that, so that's all the housekeeping stuff. You know, the thing I wanted to hit today, and I've been thinking about trying to do this for a while, and unfortunately, I haven't really been able to find a good news story to deal with this. But I want to talk. You know, oftentimes I hear people say that these situations are just for the common folks. If you have money and everything, then you get a pass on all this stuff. And I think one case that is a great example of that not being true is Brad Pitt and his ex Angelina Jolie. If you guys have followed that, and all I can really pull up on this, because I'm not going to pull up a bunch of articles, but if you guys have watched this, there's a lot of talk about parental alienation in that case. If you've heard about it, Angelina Jolie has been playing a lot of games within court. There was a lot of articles leading up to this Christmas time, basically saying, is Brad going to get to see any of his kids? 2 of his kids are completely alienated against him. There are some stories out there that say that he has done some pretty messed up things, gotten fights with one of his oldest and stuff like that. And that may be true. There may be some context to it, but it also seems, it's another example of how, hold on, I got a phone call I got to shut off that's like ringing through my ears. But it's another example of how, this stuff crosses all financial ranges, all ethnic groups. I mean, just across the board, these type of things have a tendency to just keep going on and on and on. And even if you are multimillionaires, and both of them are, then, you would think that there would be some type of, what do you call it? Parity or, they wouldn't have to deal with it. And unfortunately, it's not the case. When you have a person who is hell-bent on making the other person pay, it really creates a problem. Let me see. I think there's Angelina Jolie, still angry. Let's see. Angry. Let's see if I did that right. So this was, I've read this a couple, I don't know if this is the right one. So I'm just going to pull this one. I'm just going to pull one of them up. And, this headline has also been going around. Angelina Jolie still seething at commercials that pop up and take over the screen. Let me do this so that I get rid of all that. Is seething at Brad Pitt for turning her life upside down. And if you read a lot of these things, it talks about how it's like she's just angry and is using the kids as pawns, using the system to hold the kids away from him and make, and it's like to just dangle them, like, okay, you can't see him, and then proceed to, just to destroy relationships. I mean, this quote, I've seen this before too. Angelina still holds a lot of resentment towards Brad, a source told US Weekly. She wants him to be held accountable because she feels he turned her and her children's life upside down, which was a top quote too. But, I mean, this is one of the reasons why there needs to be so much more awareness of this and more information out there so that people can see that this isn't normal, that this isn't the way it's supposed to be. People, children do not typically hate a parent. I know we were talking about this the other day. Maybe it was when I was doing that show with Eric, that I find it incredible that, you can see situations where kids are completely backing up their toxic, abusive, physically abusive, emotional abusive parent, wanting to be with them. And, even to the point where they're getting visitation if the person even ends up in jail. And then you get in a situation like a lot of you guys are in, where you're just fighting for any particular amount of time. And then you have a child who's blaming you and hates you. And it's like, there needs to be an awakening on this where people look at it and go, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Why, without some horrific evidence, is that the case? It shouldn't be that way. And I mean, sadly, and hopefully fortunately, as more of these stories come out from all walks of life, all corners of the world, that there will be some, an aha moment where people go, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. This just isn't normal. This isn't the way, things are supposed to be, or the way that things are. I think we're getting close, guys. I really do. I really think that, I saw that Eric posted on his Facebook's or on his Dad Talk Today support group more details about the television show. They're scheduled to start filming in the beginning of 2020. Really crazy, new decade. That's amazing. But I'm really hopeful that is going to help be a catalyst to start getting more messages out there. You have the news reports that CNN was doing middle part of last year, where they were highlighting this. You got the documentaries that have been coming out, like the Erased and the Erased Grandparents and stuff. There's a lot of information that's starting to get out there. And I think people are open to it. I hate to say this, but like even the Me Too movement being abused, which is just really tragic, that you take people who have legitimately been in really bad situations, had to endure some really bad stuff, and then you have these scumbags, that I will say, that are co-opting that and using it to get back to people, because for a while you get caught, you got blamed for that and you were immediately destroyed. And then you have some really high profile ones where they were exposed to be false. Like the guy, I can't remember his name, but he's the guy that does Talking Dead, Chris Hardwick, that's his name. He got married, and his ex-girlfriend decided to say that he was an abuser. She pulled the Me Too thing. They fired him. They fired him from Talking Dead. They removed him from his like Geeks Rising or Geeks whatever. He had a con type thing that he created. They kicked him off that. They basically just like persona non grata torpedoed him. Fortunately, they did an investigation, pushed it, and realized that it was all lies. It was, and Tommy Brown's saying what? So I don't know if you're talking about that. Yeah, it was one of those things. It was like a flash in the pan. It happened. They fired him. They had some people cover the show to keep it going. Whatever the network was, I can't remember if it was NBC or CBS. They did their investigation, realized that, oh, this was a lie. Or this person now is saying, well, I don't want to talk about it anymore. And they realize, oh crap, we just destroyed this guy for false allegations. AMC. Yeah. Tommy says AMC. And I think, and there's a couple other that were, I can't remember, but there were a couple other ones where it was used like that, where it was fake. But that was, I think, to me, that was the highest profile one, where they immediately, the network jumped on and said, oh, hell no, he did that. Oh no, done, game over, boop, boom, gone. I don't know if you guys did watch it, you may have seen it when he came back. It was a pretty emotional thing whenever they said, hey, we're sorry, you can have your show back. But like the other stuff, he missed those shows. The con thing was just coming up where he was supposed to be on the panel with it. Boom, gone. So you can't bring that time back. And I think a lot of people here that, they've experienced that. It's not, there's people here who've dealt with that and are dealing with, I was accused of something, I've lost, and I can't get the time back. Free and size on the Jolie Pitt. We really don't know who is the narcissist in their scenario. The fact that he discarded Jennifer Aniston and remarried Angie so quickly is a sign that it might be the narc Me Too. Not entirely sure what you're saying on that, but what I will say on that is the problem. Here's the one big problem with all of this stuff with narc abuse is unless you know the people, whose story do you believe? Who do you believe? Because on that, you could read that and you could say, not Free Indeed's comment, but what I mean is you can look at that and say, okay, maybe Brad was, maybe he's a scumbag. Maybe, is that the case? Is it Angie? What's the, it's like, and it makes your head hurt, right? And I think that's part of the problem with this is people, if they don't take sides, it's like, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to move on and just ignore it. But it's a tough one. Now, but the crazy part is that typically, okay, I can't seem to get over here to close this. Why is this up there? I don't even know what that's doing. Trying to close that comment off, but there's a thing above it. It's a tough one because you don't know. I remember another article. Oh, I can't remember who it was. It was a musician, and I remember reading an article that the ex, not ex, but the wife was saying that the guy needed to go to rehab. He was a drug addict and an abuser, and he was really worried about the children. Read this whole article about how this guy was a piece of crap. And then it was like the last sentence was they're going through a divorce. And it's like, and as soon as I read that, I'm like, oh, really? Okay. Wow. So is that legit? Is it true? And then then I followed other articles and the guy was like, that's crap. That's not true. I don't do that. A few years ago, when he was performing and everything, he had some issues, but it's, it's tough. And it sucks that as soon as divorce starts, it's a power grab for money and time and everything. And the way you win is by destroying the other person, right? If you want to make damn sure that you get the most amount of money, or you get the least amount, or you're paying the least amount of money, it turns into a freaking war. And then the sad part is that even if there was a chance at some point to calm down, you could have such bad animosity because of how the people have been attacked that the opportunity for people to come to common ground gets blown out of the water. I mean, it's just messed up. All right, let me see what's going on in the comments. Hey, Mike is on. Says, hey, Duane, keep up the great work. Thanks, Mike. I was chatting with Mike earlier today about cameras and microphones. He and I are thinking about starting up or restarting a technology camera show in the new year on a completely different topic. So I'm looking forward to potentially doing that. That could be fun. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll around the comments and see what I can see. Oh, Stuart says, good evening, everyone. Just had court today. Well, Stuart, I hope it went well. You may have already said something about that. I hear a bunch of comments, so I think a lot of stuff's going on today. Let's see. Free Indeed had said, even people who knew me believed my ex is smear campaign. I've been talking a lot lately about credibility, falling into paranoia and stuff. I mean, I think the video I did today that dropped today about protecting your credibility is key on that. And the really sad part is you have to look at it like in this situation with even people who knew me believed my ex. You have to ask yourself a couple of questions. I would say the first question is are those people who are not siding with you, are they toxic and on themselves? Do they enjoy drama? Is this an opportunity for them to attack you? And they're just leveraging that for that. And there are some people who are falling in that category. And unfortunately, I would say oftentimes in the beginning parts of this, we don't really have a good detector on what we're dealing with. The second part is people who are, they don't fall into that category, but that they are open-minded, and they're looking at things like, oh, wow, okay, maybe I didn't know. And then then the problem can come up as, how do you come across in these situations? If your ex is tearing you apart and then your actions are backing those things up, it makes it really easy. It makes it really easy for a narcissist who's running a smear campaign, pushing your buttons, getting you to respond in a certain way, for you to encourage you to demonstrate actions that back up what they're saying, right? I'll use a stupid example. What if, let's say I said to someone, Free Indeed, they have a thing about blue hats, because I know you like blue hats, right? And I make it to where, blue hats means, something bad, They think they're better than everyone because they wear the blue hats. And then the next thing you know, the person I was talking to sees Free Indeed, sorry, I'm using you as an example, running around with a blue hat, and I'm like, oh, wow, Duane said that Free Indeed wears blue hats all the time and that it means this. And then they say something to you and you have a reaction because you're getting irritated by it, and it falls into a thing where, like, oh my God, Duane was right. And I know that's a really stupid example, but that is the type of stuff that happens all the time. So-and-so gets really angry. They're unhinged. They can't let it go, right? I'm willing to co-parent, but they won't even return my calls. It's terrible. See, and that's where it gets into a problem with credibility and understanding what it is, right? I mean, so I could say, that my ex doesn't share any information. They won't respond to any emails. I just sent her pictures and video from the wrestling match the other day, and she didn't even acknowledge it. And she said she was going to send me whatever video that she took. Never heard anything. So and the thing is like, okay, so what's real? What's the backstory? And everything I just said, I didn't make that one up. That actually did happen. But it's like, what does it really mean? I mean, unless you're like super in camp Duane, like if you know me, right? You know me, you've been around me, you know my personality. I mean, a lot of you guys, I guess technically with the channel, a lot of you guys have been around for quite a while. So, you see me almost every other day on camera. My point is it makes it really tough, And when you don't know who to believe or you don't know what's going on, you have to be really careful. Now, conversely, I will say, let me just add on this, is we all have to be incredibly careful that when somebody that we know says, oh, my ex is doing, is parental alienation, right? To not just go, oh my God, yes, I completely believe you because, that's happening to me and it's true. We all have to take a deep breath and really look at the details on it. And it's enough to drive you crazy. It really is. Let's see. Stewart said, I had court today, divorce custody court, second time this month. Ugh. Sorry about your December being filled with that, Stewart. Got another continuance, so my next hearing date is, seriously, you're going to have 3 in this month, is December 31st. The ex is making new false accusations. Oh, absolutely. Of course. They got see, here's the other problem with the false allegations, and we've been talking about this, unfortunately, for a while, is that they have nothing to lose. It's, you play that game and go, but this one time in band camp, and this wasn't in court, but I remember at one point we were at a meeting for our son, and the ex is like, can we have a private conversation? Kick our son out. And she actually had the audacity to say, he was really depressed during high school. Like, you didn't even know me in high school. It's like it was 22 years ago. There was this one time I heard his brother's sister's boyfriend's girlfriend's dog bark to me and said that when he was 12, he did something, he did blah, 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 blah. Do you think that has a bearing on this case? They got nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. And it's frustrating because we have to play this game. We have to go through this dance. We have to sit there and it's like, okay, Duane, jump through these flaming hoops. Click, 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 turn on the match, light the flame. And I better damn well jump through the hoops and do the thing. Free Indeed says, so true, didn't have a good detector on what I was dealing with. The people who believed him were pretty broken, vulnerable, and probably codependent. He's a pastor. Oh, well, yeah, you add in somebody who has clout or, a perceived reputation, and it makes it a lot harder. Your Free Indeed, that right there has been a common thread I have seen a lot throughout the last few years. So I'm sorry you're going through that, because that sucks, because now you're also losing your support group and whatnot. So don't let that, I'm going to say this, and it's going to kind of fall a little bit on deaf ears, but don't let it get to you. Know your own truth. Realize that there are people who are going to be blinded by and believe things for whatever reasons they choose to believe. You pretty well, you're already saying these people are broken and vulnerable and probably codependent. You have to just take a breath with it and then pick up the pieces and start anew. It's incredibly tough. I know I did not exactly have a lot of fun doing that myself. But it's like the other option is you go crazy trying to convince people who don't want to believe you of something that happens, and then that's what's going on. And then you get into this situation where You are trying to convince people to see the light. Please see the light. This is the truth. I don't see the truth. And it'll drive you crazy. And it did me. I tried to get people to see things, and the more I tried to point out the obvious, the worse it ended up happening. Let's see. Tara says, I finally have enough money to divorce my ex-narc husband. What is the best way to have them served? I don't want to see him, but I want to make sure they're signed, and I don't want any more games. You hire a process server. Just do a Google search in your area for process servers. I've had to use them. You can potentially get local law enforcement to do it as well. But there are people that you pay a little bit of money and they will do it. If they're going to play a lot, there is ways to do it through the mail. That's the way normally my ex did it when she was serving me with something. She would just do it in the mail. But just double check on the details on it. And you got to be a little careful, because if they're really going to be butt heads about it, and they'll be like, oh, I never got that. It never showed up, So, but that is the answer to that, Tara. Glad you're finally able to start breaking free. I see some heard my little Bandcamp reference. That's funny. Wind story. See, sometimes it's hard for me to, I know the conversation's not fast, but it's like trying to read and figure out everything that's going on can be a little problematic at times. John says, folks, please understand, when the attorneys are gone, you still have to co-parent. It's impossible to do so when all you have done is fight in court and handed over all your money to the court. That's true, John, but man, I tell you, when you're dealing with someone toxic and all they care about is their own selfish interest, and they don't care about who they hurt, they don't think about it. They want to win. They want to destroy you, make you run away, and they don't think about it. It's interesting, because this is why I like this 50-50 presumptive custody. Because I know that had I gone to court and they said the first day, if they said, okay, any real evidence? Oh no, you're just making stuff up now, and there's not a history of police reports and domestic violence and stuff. Yeah, okay, no, 50-50, and then you can provide more. Next hearing we can try to adjust custody down or whatever, and then be to where it's like, okay, because then I would have been, for me personally, I wouldn't have needed to fight. It's like, okay, I'm going for 50-50. That's what I want. That's what I'm thinking the expectation is. I don't need to push anything else. I think potentially, if we could get to the point, and I don't know if we were talking about this, if I saw this someplace else, or if I was talking about this on a live the other day, that if you went to your attorney and your attorney said, well, one thing, like today you go to your attorney and it's like, hey, look, if you want full custody, you need to dig up all the dirt, shake out all the dirt out of the closet, anything you can think of to destroy your soon-to-be ex, to vilify them, to make them look like a horrible person, horrible parent, to make them look like a villain. You need to get that right now, and we need, find other people who will write and what do you call it? Like, not testify, but there's another term to where they could write a document that's actually recognized by the court to say that the other person's a piece of crap. That's how these things start out. Now imagine if instead of going in and hearing that, and it's not necessarily, that can be said overtly like that, or that can be just said, well, the only way you would get full custody nowadays is, you have to prove that the other person's a piece of garbage, which my ex tried to do. Declaration. Thank you very much. That's exactly the word I was looking for. Ordric. That and Stuart had said the same thing. Thank you guys. Appreciate that. I could not think of that word. Our sworn affidavit. That'll do it too. Anyways, now take the scenario where you go to court and your attorney says, "Hey, so it's unless you have something that's been going on, like do you have years of domestic violence and other things?" No. Well, it's going to be 50-50. As soon as we go to court, it's going to be 50-50. You might want to try to make a deal or calm things down. Now, I know that sucks for people who are like, "No, I don't want the other person. They're bad and they don't need to be around, they don't need to be around the other person and whatnot." I mean, I get it, right? I mean, we all know. I mean, if you strongly suspect that your ex is a narcissistic, toxic person with potential personality disorder, you don't want your kids around them, right? I mean, I get that. But whenever you're in a situation to where, you have to basically burn the whole place down in an attempt to do that. And the sad part is the toxic person doesn't care. So they'll roll the dice. They'll throw more mud. They'll throw more things out there because if somebody believes and it sticks, then they win. What do they have to lose? Our brand says Dad's Surviving Divorce. It's actually Dad's Surviving Divorce, DSD. And I started it just, if you're asking about the name of the channel, initially I was just talking about it from my story perspective. So probably not the best choice of name that I came up with, but it seemed like a good idea 3.5 years ago when I started it. So our brand, hopefully that clarifies what it was talking about. Or no, maybe Shane was asking. It looked like someone else was asking. So it looks like our brand was clarifying that. So thank you. Yeah, see, that right there is a good example of how I tend to miss things. And yeah, see, I missed part of the conversation. Oh, yeah, okay, our brand. No, our brand, this channel is more about helping everybody who has a toxic ex. And I've seen a lot of people who said that. It's like, dang it, the women already have a bunch of channels. They can go elsewhere. One thing that's really nice, one thing I've seen over the course of the 3.5 years that I've been doing this channel is that by bringing people together who have a similar experience, whether they're male or female, whether they're in, a regular male-female relationship or male-male relationship or female-female relationship, everybody who's dealing with a toxic, narcissistic ex goes through the exact same thing. And I will say, honestly, it was actually rather surprising when I started this. The nice part about this is, in my mind, for people to see that not every gender is one way, either way. I think part of the problem with the female-centric, man-hating channels is it keeps you in a mode where you're still angry and hateful and you're just like, yeah, they all suck. I saw a comment the other day on one of the narcissistic abuse recovery things, and I almost didn't comment, but the person basically made a comment saying, I've gone to this location to be away from everybody. It was a woman saying, I'm at the point where I can't, I feel sick to my stomach being around them. I don't trust them. And I'm like, okay, I understand this because there was a period of time for me that I thought all women were evil, that I was going down that road. And part of that makes sense because whenever you've been hurt, whenever you've been attacked in a most vicious way, you're instinctively going to take actions or think things to protect yourself. If you've been torpedoed by a woman, in my mind, it's only going to be natural to think they're all evil. I need to stay away from all of them because they are evil until you have an opportunity to heal. I think what's nice about this channel is that, and especially like even on the Discord server, it's an opportunity for people to share stories and go, holy crap, Susie, your story is exactly like mine. And I've had people say that. I've had women come on and say, oh my God, what you're talking about is exactly what I'm experiencing. And I think it's powerful because I think it starts to help you heal that part of it so that you can really start working on the core wounds and the core issues. Curious what you think about that, R. Brand. Hopefully that makes sense to you, and hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Okay, I'm trying to scroll because now I've missed some things. Oh, now I'm at the bottom and I went too far. All right. Lee says narcs are both male and female, but female narcs have more power in family court. What I would say is not entirely. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think it's set up that if the narc is a woman and they're abusing the system, they're going to have success. But there are a lot. But see that what it's starting to it's starting to balance. There's now being balance in the force, where men are like, hey, you know what? If I destroy this other person, then I have a better chance to win. And here's the deal. Most of the time, you have a narcissist person with like an empath or codependent type person. The narcissist person will torpedo whoever they need to get what they want. The other person won't. I mean, like for instance, there are things that I could have brought up during my divorce, to try to embarrass the ex, to point things out, to take it out of proportion. I mean, basically could have been true. I mean, I could have brought up some things that she told me that she did before she knew me that, was she like, I mean, I could have done that. I didn't. I could have tried to just destroy her. I didn't. And that's part of the problem is that whenever you're in a war or you're in a battle with somebody who has no ethics, who has no morals, they'll do whatever the hell they want. I'm trying to think of an example I can grab on this, but whereas, okay, I'll just use me again. I mean, you hold back out of integrity and right and thinking right and wrong, right? It's like, well, that's the mother of my child. I'm not gonna throw out in paperwork that blah 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 blah. And you don't do it, whereas then they do. And the problem is it's like, it's like Pearl Harbor. I probably should use a different analogy because that's so old, but I'll say that, it's like you have you're not prepared for it. You're not thinking about it. You're having a barbecue. The next thing you know, your whole area has been bombed and your ships are sinking. You're like, what the hell just happened? Okay. That's like the super condensed version of that. But I think that's what happens all the time in family court is you don't believe. Okay. I'll bring this up again because I was talking about this the other day. And this is very typical. You're going through a potential divorce. It hasn't gotten ugly yet. You both are talking about how we're going to be amicable. I'll let you see the kids anytime you want. We'll do 50-50. You show up in court. Your Honor, Mr. Bill is a scumbag who beats the kids and beats everyone and barbecues kittens. And you're sitting there going, what? And then you have a deposition where somebody is saying, oh yeah. I mean, I had a friend of mine that happened to him. His ex, boom, took the kids out of state, was waiting for residency so she could file in another state. He found out, he filed, the judge was like, you get those kids, you bring them back. You bring them back to California. This is not cool. We're not going to let you do that. And he was like, I won. Yay. The judges, yay. Walks into court. Ex walks in with a bunch of, signed declarations saying that this guy was a piece of crap and put the kids outside in the cold without shoes because he was mad, which is bull. And, but walked into court, had all these things. He had nothing because he didn't think he needed anything because he thought he won. And the judge said, "Oh, you're a scumbag. Dink. You can take the kids out of state." And boom, there went his relationship with his kids. Now, fortunately, his ex married some dude that was a millionaire. And after a while, she felt sorry for him because he couldn't, he was living in a freaking closet and backed off on some things. Thank God. But, that crap happens all the time. Let's see. Violet says, if you want full custody, fight for your kids. Don't settle for 50-50. I would agree with you on that. I think that if I understood what I was dealing with back in the day, I would have articulated my concerns a lot differently than I did because I was undermining myself in the custody evaluation, in my opinion. And I wasn't thinking about it. I was like this. I was naive where I believed that this would calm down and that 50-50 would be best and we'd be able to co-parent. I did not know what I was dealing with. So if you're here's the thing, and I'll caveat this. If you're in the midst of court, you're in the beginning stages of this, that's when you fight for everything you want. However, you also have to be cautious of how you're perceived, right? Like for instance, in my mind, with the argument I was trying to make, I think if I was asking for full custody, that at the time, I couldn't come up with an argument that would make sense logically to say full custody. Now, knowing what I know now, there are some things I would have done differently to say, and effectively I was trying to do this, but I didn't know what I was dealing with to say it in the right way. But I wish I would have. I wish I would have said, there are issues here. There are emotional issues. There's these patterns of behavior that are concerning. I brought some of those up, but I brought it up in not an inappropriate way, but I worded it in a way that it made me look like I was just a bitter, angry person trying to smear the other person just to win. So, but if you're in the beginning of it, that's your time to try to get the best you can. Anyways, trying to see what that question was. I couldn't figure out what they were asking. Matt says, in the beginning, I asked for 50-50 equal parenting time, no child support for either side. What happened with that, Matt? Ugh, I think I need more coffee. I'm trying to read this one from Orderic. And I'm not entirely sure. Orderic says, 1, say you are breastfeeding and the child needs to be with you. To claim abuse, emergency forces man to leave for a minimum of 2 weeks. And then 3 says he has been gone for 2 weeks and child doesn't know him. Oh, dear God. Well, I've heard, Orderic, that some courts will say, hey, if it's breastfeeding, then you pump and you provide, the person has to provide the milk to the other person, which God seems like that would just be not a fun situation. But here's the other thing, guys. Just because someone says something, like in this situation, what's up on the screen right now, just because the person says, oh, well, you've been gone for 2 weeks and now they don't know you, that's crap. Just keep in mind that that they'll use fear tactics to try to get you to make mistakes or believe it or go, oh my God, it's been 2 weeks and now we don't, I guess there's no reason to fight this anymore. It's just, they live in their own delusion. So just, take a deep breath. Don't take the bait on it. And I have videos on that that I've done in the past of called, fear tactics. I wonder if I could find it real quick. Well, whoa, back. Right here. This one, I don't know, does my mouse show up? Yeah, right here. The fear tactics used by a narcissist. I would encourage you to look at that because that would be very helpful. All right. Now, I can see we have our reoccurring troll, unfortunately. Thank you, Lee, for trying to clarify that. Yeah, this has never been, I don't even need to go into this, so I'm not even gonna go down there. Good times. Fluffy. Oh, I'm not sure what you mean, AK, about the fluffy mic. Do you mean the one that has the whatchamacallit? My other one? I bounce back and forth. I like this one though. I like the way it sounds, and it actually does a pretty good job of backing it out. Oh, I got a super chat. I didn't see that. Let me see if I can. Oh, there it is. Free Indeed says, I'm a woman and I like this channel because men aren't bashed, neither are women. No, they aren't. Just great info for peeps going through narc abuse. Thanks, DSD. You're absolutely welcome. Thank you very much. And thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. And Lola, yes, I do see you on. I do see the chat. So welcome to another live show. But you know what? Lola did have an interesting question up here. I know it's targeted more on trying to poke me in the eye, but it is important. It says, can you only record in one party states? If we're part of a conversation, does a live chat count as being part of one? We could transcribe the audio with all clear. So what I will say on this, if you are in a two-party consent state, which I think California is one, double check with your attorney. So if you're going to be recording somebody, make sure it's legal. You don't want to do anything that puts you in more harm's way or creates more problems. And if you're talking to somebody and they're in different states, double check with an attorney to make sure you're not having any problems. There was a situation, can't remember what it was. It was actors or whatever who were doing something, and that came up because one person was in California, the other person was in like New York, and the New York was a single party state. Okay, don't quote me on this, but the one person was in a state that was okay to record a conversation. The other one was in another one. It's like, well, is it a federal crime? I don't know. So I know a lot of people recommend recording things. Just make sure that you're legal with it. If it's perfectly legal, then do it. If you have to be in a different scenario or different situation, or like maybe it has to be like a GoPro on your head or something like that, then you do that. But just be really careful. Scott says each state is different typically. So yeah, be very cautious on that and only choose or only do what you know that you can do for your state. Just double check. You don't want to add any extra drama or Tommy says, what is one party? There's some states that it's like if if you're having, like, let's say, Tommy, you and I were having a conversation in a one-party state, I could record the conversation and you don't have to agree to it. And then later you can't say, hey, I didn't know you were recording that. Whereas a two-party state would mean that I would have to come in and say, hey, Tommy, we're going to have a conversation. Do you mind if I record it? And you would have to say, no, I don't mind. Go ahead and record it, Duane. Or you would say, no, I don't want this recorded. And then legally I couldn't record you. See, Matt says, I recorded my narc while we're watching TV. She called, let me post this on the screen. My narc, while we were watching TV, she called the cops one night because I refused to let her kick me out. Was recorded all night, so she got nothing. See, and that's the tough part is that, it's like sometimes you need that to help that. I'll just, Lola says, Duane, we are trying to be careful. Catching the live is a help, but is being part of the live chat being part of a conversation? I'm not entirely sure what you're asking. I would say you would just have to ask an attorney, Lola. So, anyways, Jorge says, record them anyways. There are some people who would say, it's better to take the risk because then you might prove that something else isn't happening. So just be careful because, the problem with it is if you record it, they find out and it's illegal for you to do it. And then it comes up and, there's no reason for it to be used any other way. Then you're kind of in a bad way. So just be very careful. That's the only thing I can say. Ordrick says, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. It says, what is a long-term goal with this channel? Can we mobilize and put forth some legislation to Congress? Actually, the long-term channel, you know what? That's a good question. Not entirely sure. I'm planning on continuing because this channel is saving lives. I get comments like that all the time where people get this information. They're able to take an objective look at their situation, find a way to calm themselves, get some stability in their lives, and undo a lot of the damage that's happened with their children. And I don't know. I don't know how long it'll go. But what I will say is there is a lot of efforts to make some change. This presumption for 50-50 custody is part of it. The stuff that the guys over at Dad Talk Today are doing is also a big part of it. Getting out more information, getting the awareness so that people understand what's going on and have actionable ways to take their lives back. Okay. So I'm searching around. Did I already? Oh, we're kind of running up on an hour. So we'll probably, if there's any other questions, we'll hit those before we start wrapping things up. And this will probably be the last live of the year. I have the kids for the Christmas break, or technically, I guess I have the kid, because the other ones are adults now. So, but I'm thinking about on Christmas Day, jumping on a little bit whenever everyone's out of the house, to do that. Hey, Lola, I tell you what, if you can do me a favor, since you know me, I guess, send me an email. Or go on the website and send me, do it through that and just say, hey, I know where you live. I know what car you have. I know what you drive. That would be interesting. All right, guys. On that, AK did ask a question, so I'll drive that. It says, Duane, question, did you settle for guideline support or did you negotiate? Guideline. And I guess in California, if both of you agree to do something that was off guideline, I think you can. But it's on guideline. So, yeah. And I mean, honestly, I think even if you agreed to something, that the ex could go back and later and say, you know what, I agreed to something, but now I want to go guideline. So in my mind, you're better off just, I mean, I guess technically if you agreed and if you made an agreement that was better than what the guideline support would be, then okay. But you need to also keep in mind that I think, unless it's written a certain way, at any time the person can ask for a reevaluation or a redetermination based on guideline, and then they would readjust it to that. Okay. Good for you, Camilla. Says, I won full custody. John says, my child agreements can be altered each year in my state. I think most states have that type of thing to where it can be reevaluated on a regular basis. Yeah, Tommy Brown says, I read horror stories on that agreement stuff. They can go back. And I remember in the beginning asking my attorney about that. I said, well, what if we agreed to, something? And it's like, oh yeah, you can agree to whatever you want. But if they changed our mind later, then you're hosed. That's why I don't recommend people do that. You get the best deal that you possibly can. Get as much time as you possibly can. Because if you agree to something different, like let's say you're like, you know what, there's been some people on the channel who've done this. They're like, you know what, the ex says that they'll let me see the kids anytime. So I'm just going to let it go, right? I'll just go, I'll let them put in, every other weekend in the system, and it'll be great. And then the problem is, you do that, you realize later that you're not dealing with somebody who's being genuine, and now you're dealing in a situation where you're like, oh crap, I want to see my kids more, but they won't let it. Or even worse, they go through and they say, hey, yeah, so it's only 80-20, or the person only sees the kids once a month. I want to move out of state. They don't really see them that much anyways, and here's like a year or two of a pattern, not pattern, but of track record showing this. And then sometimes the courts will then say, oh, okay, well, no problem. They'll get the same amount of time. They'll just get it in the summer and, maybe on the Christmas holidays. So you have to be really, really careful about that. Okay. Free Inside says, question, my kid is going to be with my ex and his new ex-wife. Oh. He remarried her a few weeks after a divorce. He's abusive kiddo, doesn't want to go, but has to per court. Any advice? Send him. If it's on the court order, do not play a game. In my opinion, double check with your attorney. If you set up a scenario to where you start denying visitation and are following the court order, it can blow up in your face. So if it's really a problem, depending on free indeed how old your child is, then the recommendation I would say is go to court and ask for a modification. But you're going to be, depending on the age of the child, you're going to have a really tough time with that. I'm just looking through some other things. All right, guys. We're rolling up on an hour. Thanks for hanging out. I know this was kind of an impromptu. We didn't really have a major topic tonight because it's kind of tough when you run in the door to try to throw one of these together. So thank you very much for hanging out. Thanks for all the support in the super chats. We had we're up to 61 people. That's cool. Haven't had that in a while, so that's kind of nice. Like I said, I probably will not be able to do any more live streams until after the new year, except for maybe Christmas, on Christmas Day. Yeah, we'll catch you guys on the next one. So take care and have a good night.